Good morning, church. I'm Christina from the worship arts team, and I'll be sharing with you from Psalm 138 today. As we've seen all through the book of Psalms, David is no stranger to frustration or disappointment. Instead, when he hits those times, he uses what he knows is true about God and what God has done to give him strength for the future. Let's look at Psalm 138. I give thanks, O Lord, with my whole heart. Before the gods, I sing your praise. I bow down toward your holy temple and give thanks to your name for your steadfast love and your faithfulness. For you have exalted above all things your name and your word. On the day I called, you answered me. My strength of soul you increased. This is David's personal theology of God. Just like Pastor Tom has told us over all these years, it's important to have that. It's important to be able to look back on who you know God is, who you know he is true to be, and what he has done so that it can give you strength and reassurance for the future. Let's go on to verse 7. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you preserve my life. You stretch out your hand against the wrath of my enemies, and your right hand delivers me. The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. Do not forsake the work of your hands. David is using what he knows to be true about God to give him strength, to give him hope for the future. He knows that God isn't like a preschooler that leaves Play-Doh out overnight and wonders why it turned into a purple rock. He knows that God is a master artist. I tell my kids that God is kind of like a glass blower. He starts with this delicate beginning with each of us, and then he breathes life into us. He takes little bits of color, things like our features and our interests and our personalities, things that make us unique and give us character. And then he allows us to go through trials, things like financial hardships and job losses and infertility and the death of people that we love, that grieving process. And he uses those trials and those frustrations and those disappointments as heat, like a glassblower uses heat to mold and shape and strengthen their creation. God does that with us. He doesn't forsake the work of his hands because we are the work of his hands. He never abandons us. He never leaves us. He never forgets about us. And then I think it's just important for us to remember that when you look at a piece of blown glass, that finished piece, you can't see all the individual pieces that went together to make it what it is. And strangers can't see that in us either. They don't know how God has worked in our lives, but we can share our stories so that they do know, so that they can hear of God's faithfulness and his goodness and be encouraged as well. As a church, we at the Grove, we're being changed by God to reach all people, and that's why it's important for us to share our stories. So friends, if you're in a difficult season right now, I encourage you, like David, go back and think of when you've seen God's goodness and his faithfulness. Write those down in a journal and put them someplace special, someplace where you'll be able to go back and be encouraged by it when those tough times come. Or if you're in those tough times, they'll encourage you right now. If you're in a great season of life, I encourage you to share your story, to give thanks with your whole heart, just like it says in verse 1, so that others can be encouraged and give glory to God. Have a great Thursday, friends.